Esme's umbrella logo. Hello, my name is Judith Potts and I am the founder of Esme's Umbrella, which is the charity to raise awareness of a condition called Charles Bonnet Syndrome. Charles Bonnet Syndrome occurs when someone of any age has lost over 60% of sight. It causes vivid, silent, visual hallucinations, which range from disturbing to terrifying. It's very important to remember that this is not a mental health condition, but caused entirely by loss of sight. The kind of hallucinations which people experience can be very simple ones, like blobs of colour, patterns, grids, all the way through to animals, birds, insects, and people. When someone sees the image of a human being, that image is usually wearing a costume of some kind, military or medieval, Edwardian. My own mother, the Esme of Esme's Umbrella, saw an Edwardian street child who followed her everywhere. Living with Charles Bonnet Syndrome is not at all easy, and I'm going to introduce you now to Nina Chesworth. Nina lives with CBS 24 hours a day, and she will explain to you just what it's like. Nina.
Hi, my name's Nina Chesworth, and I want to share with you today a little bit about my experience with Charles Bonnet Syndrome. My sight condition started when I was 2 years old after catching the flu virus, which then developed into different kind of eye problems. Having several surgeries to try and correct the sight. Some were successful, some weren't. My levels of vision varied, but I never experienced Charles Bonnet Syndrome. I never heard of Charles Bonnet Syndrome. Then 13 years ago, I lost my right eye in an accident. 3 years ago, I lost the retina in my left eye, which then caused Charles Bonnet Syndrome to be triggered. I was in recovery after the surgery to the left eye, where they managed to save my eye, but not my sight, unfortunately. And I was lying there, and all I started to see was red and blue kind of mist. And I just assumed that they'd managed to save some of my sight. My husband and my mum ran off and got the doctor. He came back and he said, "No, I can reassure you, we've not saved your sight. It's just your mind playing tricks on you." There was, again, still no mention of Charles Bonnet Syndrome. So we went home. 4 or 5 weeks later, the colours had started to develop into shapes. More colours had joined them. The shapes began to form faces, and not only like human faces, but they were kind of cartoon characters, and they had no eyes in the sockets and blood dripping down the cheeks, and they just floated in front of my face. I kept all this to myself. I didn't tell anybody because I was really worried that they would just assume that I was having a nervous breakdown or I was struggling to come to terms with my sight loss, and I was really worried that they'd think I was going mad. And it got to that point where I just had to tell someone because I was on my own more in the house because my son had gone back to school, my husband back to work, and the images were just getting worse, I think because I was alone so much. I shared with them what I was seeing, and to my surprise they were as understanding as they could be. They were a little taken aback by it, so we just went into full research mode. We came across Esme's Umbrella, and that's when I got in touch with Judith Potts, and she was so lovely, understanding, and straight away explained what Charles Bonnet Syndrome was, told me that it seemed very likely that that's what I had, and invited me along to her York Patient Support Day. There we met Dominic Fitch, I met Judith in person. We also met other people with the condition, and I can't tell you how much of a relief it was just to speak to others that were going through the same thing I was. Also, to get a diagnosis and to be told that this is an actual condition and it's not just my mind playing tricks on me like that doctor in the hospital told me. It was so good to know that I wasn't alone. My experiences of Charles Bonnet Syndrome, they're different to the stories that I've heard from other people. With me, they are constantly 24 hours a day from when I wake to when I go to sleep. I see lots of colour, shapes, I see animals. There could be a tiger just kind of sat floating in front of me. Faces that will appear and then disappear, kind of in a cloud of smoke. My hallucinations follow me wherever I move. If I move my eyes left to right, they follow me, the patterns stay with me. They also can get in the way sometimes because I have no vision at all. If the hallucinations are quite bad and they're in my way and they distract me from what I'm doing, and then that can cause accidents. I've walked into walls, I've fell down the stairs because of them, because a tiger may suddenly appear, and because my concentration is needed, because I don't have that vision, it startles me and it can cause accidents. I've had Charles Bonnet Syndrome now for 3 years, and I've come across lots of different coping mechanisms, some through Esme's umbrella, some of my own that I've come across. The ones that have worked for me are meditation and yoga and ginger. It doesn't make them go away, it just reduces the intensity of the hallucination. Other people have told me that eye movement, leaving the room, coming back into the room, turning the lights on and off, different things help different people. I think it's a case of experimenting with the different coping mechanisms and seeing what works best for you. Charles Bonnet Syndrome has really impacted my life. I didn't really expect it to. I thought sight loss would be harder. There are so many people in the UK and worldwide that have the condition that might not even know they have it. I hope this video can help people and give information to those who need it. There is so much more research to do and support to be given out there to people with Charles Bonnet Syndrome.
Thank you very much, Nina. Now, Nina talked about support, and this is incredibly important. For centuries, since 1760, when Charles Bonnet first documented what was happening to his grandfather, there has been no support at all. But now we have Esme's Friends groups, which are conducted on the telephone, online, face-to-face, and sometimes hybrid. These allow people with Charles Bonnet Syndrome to come together, to exchange their experience, because it's different for everyone, and to find coping strategies just to help them through. These strategies can be found on my website, along with all sorts of other information. Please visit www.charlesbonnetsyndrome.uk. That's spelt CharlesBonnetSyndrome.uk. It's very sad to think that for so long people were too afraid that they were developing a mental health condition to tell anybody. We now know that if someone whose sight is diminishing receives a warning that Charles Bonnet Syndrome might appear, they can then recognize that first hallucination for what it is and not think that they are developing a mental health condition. The outcome is so much better. Talking to others who have the same condition is hugely helpful. So we have the Esme's Friends groups, we have counsellors. Retina UK has a buddy scheme, and the Macular Society offers counselling. So there is help out there. At the moment, that's about it, but there is research which has begun at various universities, including Oxford. And we hope that once we know a little bit more about the condition, we will be able to find better ways to support people and a proper pathway for diagnosis, treatment, and support. When I launched Esme's Umbrella, one of my aims was to persuade the World Health Organization that this condition should be noted not just as a side effect of sight loss, but as a condition in its own right. And I'm very happy to say that with the help of Professor Andrew Dick here in the UK and Dr. August Kohlenbrander in the USA, we have achieved that. So now Charles Bonnet Syndrome has its own coding in the World Health Organization's taxonomy of diseases and conditions called ICD-11. For the Retina UK helpline, call 0300 111 4000. To contact the Macular Society, dial 0300 30 30 111.